Note the 3989 BC calculated earlier. We had shown that, how we derived it. That's from Bible time. We put in 6,000 years here, 6 times 1,000. We calculate for where 6,000 years ends based on AD at this point, and you need to add 1 year. This is important to understand. There is no 0 year, so in order to correct for this situation, we need to add a year. And sometimes this is missed. It's important to remember this. What do we end up with? AD 2012. This is an easy calculation. Add another 1,000 years on, time of the millennium, we end up in AD 3012. And this is the total 7,000 years. 7 days of 1,000 years each. The chronology is basically established at this point that we've been researching. Now Ussher's chronology shows that 1997 marked the end of 6,000 years of history since creation. We're past it, right? We're past 1997. Now, to accept or reject any specific assumption from either Ussher's chronology or this chronology alters Earth's 6,000-year end date. A quick review of the effects particular combinations of assumptions have upon this end date will now be shown. Recall that this chronology differs from Ussher's chronology in 3 major areas. Terah's age at Abram's birth. Ussher said 130. This chronology 70. The 430-year covenant time period, relative to the beginning, Ussher said Abraham was 75. This chronology puts Abraham as 99. The 70-year Babylonian captivity being the beginning, Ussher said this began in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim's reign. And when I say 3rd year, we note that back to Judah's reckoning. Remember, he reigned a total of 11 years. This chronology, we're putting it at the 3rd and final captivity of Judah. Now, in addition, this chronology differs from Ussher in one minor area, and that is the time period for Judah's 20 kings. Ussher's chronology, 389. This chronology, 390. That's terribly close. Prophecy in Ezekiel presents this period as precisely 390, so let's just correct Ussher here. I think we can take the liberty here to correct him. It's a minor mistake. We're talking 1 year, so we'll correct it. And then we're going to proceed to combine his assumptions made in those 3 significantly differing points with assumptions made in this chronology and see what we come up with. Okay, the assumption combinations and resulting 6,000-year end date. Let's see what happens. We're looking at Terah's age at Abram's birth, the beginning of the 430-year covenant period, and the 70-year Babylonian captivity, looking particularly at the beginning. And that will give us, ultimately, we'll find the end of 6,000 years of history. And what we're going to do, let's take Ussher fully here. Assuming Ussher is completely correct, we have, as known, 1997. If we take Ussher, basically in everything except the 70-year Babylonian captivity, we have 1977. Again, now alternating and taking different combinations of assumptions. This next one produces 1973. Once again, if we take everything in this chronology as correct, but say, well, we think Stephen recorded history correctly, or he mentioned or just spoke history correctly, that calculating Terah's age, well, through biblical calculation of 130, we get 1953. Now, if we start changing this and making Terah 70 when Abram was born, what do we come up with? 2057. We haven't arrived there. Other combinations, 2037. Again, future. Again, changing the combination, 2033. And finally, taking everything that we have discovered in this chronology and applying it, we have what was shown, 2012. Now let's look at a final consideration. Something we didn't consider, we didn't mention, but it is important. If Adam was 130 years old when Seth was born, does this mean that he was exactly 130? I don't mean to introduce doubt here, but this should be in your minds. Is he 130? Probably not. You would normally say, 130 and 3 months. 3 months and 10 days his child was born. Okay? We haven't accounted for that. So biblical ages for the patriarchs listed in Genesis, we could presume are taken and rounded down for this chronology. So wouldn't a few extra months need to be added to Adam's 131st year? That means he's lived 130 years. He's now into his 131st year to adjust for this problem. Remember, the sum of the 20 reigns of the kings following Solomon was 393 and a half. But prophecy in Ezekiel said, no prophecy, said it was 390. This means that the reigns had been rounded up. It also means we have error, 3.5 years per 20 changes in kingly power. Now, there's also 20 generations from Adam's sin to the covenant made with Abraham. But as just shown, they're all rounded down because these were generations. You're 40 years old, you have a son. Once again, you could be older than that. Hence, a statistical correction could easily be made for this entire time period reversely by the addition of 3.5 years of time. And this would be the means of help correcting what we think is an apparent problem in determining the exact age of each of the patriarchs when their children were born. But we're not going to do it. And why? Hasn't God shown he corrects his own time? He corrects his own time. He corrected the time period for the 20 kings. So why should we interject our own ideas, our own theorized ideas, to try to fix an apparent problem with God's word? Just leave it alone. If God wanted it corrected, he would have corrected it. In addition, the Bible correlations yet to be shown will rightly justify this decision.